inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Vines.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Vines, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. My guest today is Andrew Johnson, CEO of Shelfaware LLC, which is a technology startup focused on supply chain automation. Andrew, along with his father and three brother-in-laws, work together across an ecosystem of family businesses that are all Christ-centered in their focus. We talk about his adventures of entrepreneurship with family, about how he is learning to work in partnership with God and keep first things first. Plus, you'll hear about how his family approaches kingdom impact in the marketplace through their business in a way that goes beyond financial giving. There's plenty of goodness to grab hold of here in Andrew's story. So listen in and enjoy. Andrew Johnson, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Shay?
I am doing great. I'm delighted to be able to sit here and chat with you today. I got to tell you that I've interviewed over 300 and something business owners across a lot of different areas, but you're the first person that I've talked to with your business, with your particular industry. So this is going to be fun. So share, before we hit record, you were kind of giving me the dynamics of the business and how it's like there's multiple family businesses, but give us kind of like a broad picture so that we can start there.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. It is pretty unique. I'd say we're uniquely blessed in a lot of ways, but our story starts with my dad, the founder of an industrial distributor that specializes in rubber products. So they sell custom molded rubber and O-rings and seals and gaskets to the industrial marketplace, mainly manufacturers. My dad started that company in 1982. Which was a little bit before I was born. So my entire upbringing was all based around O-rings, gaskets, specialized product. He believed in child labor, so I worked quite a bit off and on in the company. It was very much that quintessential American entrepreneurial founder story where he bootstrapped it and he had no capital investors. My mom's nursing salary was his only investment, and then I have three sisters. They helped in the company off and on as well. And then eventually what happened was more unique even. My three sisters all went out and found wonderful, godly men, married them, and brought us back three incredibly unique but gifted brother-in-laws. So I work with my three brother-in-laws.
Wow.
In this family business ecosystem now. It started as just that one company, industrial distributor, but then in around 2012, 2013, we started to not just work in my dad's company, but work on my dad's company. And we worked through some friction with my dad, the founder, to try and give us a little bit of a longer leash, which he did.
Yes.
And with that longer leash, the boys, as we're kind of affectionately termed here in the company, the boys ran with it, and we created a series of small technological innovations that helped us become more efficient. And then out of that process, which was a multi-year kind of incremental innovation process, we tripled the size of the family business.
Wow.
And in revenue, but kept the head count roughly the same. In fact, trimmed it on some years by just creating automated systems and process automation. And through that, we created outbound, external innovations. One of those was Shelfaware, which is the company that I run now. Shelfaware was a service offering that we created for our customers, where we, as a supplier of rubber products, manage their inventory for them. So The setting would be like large manufacturers who consume lots of rubber products and O-rings and gaskets. We can run their inventory using the Shelfaware system that we invented. And it leverages smart labels to monitor product consumption remotely. So we just watch the computer screen and over the internet, watch their products get used up, and then we send them more.
Nice.
And that was my oldest brother-in-law wrote most of the computer code for the original software. And then in 2018, we scaled that out to an independent business. And now I run and grow and scale that by licensing that whole inventory system to other industrial suppliers to do the same thing.
I love it.
Yeah. Then the third one is another weird one. It's an Amazon-based business, which there's quite a few of those out there, but we basically take our really unique supply chain and leverage it to create consumer products and sell them on Amazon. And my other brother-in-law, Jay, he runs that company.
I love that. I love how when your father said, "Okay, you guys have ideas," and gave you some wiggle room to explore that for the core company. We'll call it. I think you call it like the hub. So like the
hub and spokes.
The mothership.
The mothership. Company.
Yep. And then from there, what was working well and helped to really grow and scale what was happening with that company. Then it was like, oh, we can serve others with this technology, or these innovations will also help others within the industry, or et cetera. And so I love how that worked out. And I love how it's a whole family dynamic. That's fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it very much is. We have, because we're a distributor, we have a big warehouse. And so there's a bunch of like go-karts and kids' toys back there because amongst all of my siblings, we have, I think we're at 13. I might get that wrong, but 13 children in the third generation. And so, and they're all little tiny babies right now and, young kids. So when the weather's no good, because we're in Kansas City, so we don't have a lot of nice weather.
Right.
Especially like the winter months, we leverage that warehouse and the kids are all back there playing.
Running around, doing their thing.
Riding their bikes, go-karts, playing hide and seek.
Oh, that's so fun. I love that. And so you're in Kansas City, Kansas.
On the Kansas side, yep.
All right. Now, so talk to me a little bit about your faith journey. I don't know, do you raise... were you raised in a Christian household? You kind of grew up in the kind of a culture of faith. You're shaking your head. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
I did.
Go ahead.
I did. I very much so. My parents were devout Christians and church attendees and very active. And they even sent us to a private school here in Kansas City called Kansas City Christian. So I had the quintessential Christian kid upbringing.
Okay. Now I'm curious to know how this played out in business. Cause a lot of times in the business world, there's kind of like, well, there's a compartmentalization that happens with some. Right. I'm curious to know what was the kind of the culture in the workplace that you were raised in and growing up, and how was faith informing kind of your upbringing as it relates to entrepreneurship? How did that show up for you? How did you grow up in that?
Yeah. So my mom and dad were wonderful about all of this. They always said from the very beginning, I can remember from my earliest childhood memories, they said that the business was a gift from God, and whatever direction it went, because we had plenty of down times when we were just starting out. There were years where my dad didn't think it was going to make it, but ultimately my mom and dad would say, look, whether it makes it or not, it's just by the grace of God, we've grown the business and gotten it to where it's at today. So if it fails, he'll provide other means and we'll move on. So they always said the business is a gift from God. Yeah. And my dad was always very clear. He talked a lot about, Luke 12:48 or Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the talents. Yeah. In the morning over meals or at dinner time, he tried to instill in us that to whom much is given, much is to be expected. So he felt like we'd been blessed with a lot. Thus, we should use our time, money, talents, fruits of our labor to bless other people, whether that was in our local community or abroad. And that was consistent, really consistent through my whole upbringing, all the way into me working with my dad. He still had those same principles instilled in us and in my brother-in-laws. But it's become a little bit more unique. And what I wanted to talk about, today and try and get across to your audience was giving money. So going and working and as a Christian business owner, making money and giving your first fruits or giving, your 10% tithe or more in financial contributions to the kingdom. That's obviously fundamental.
Right. That's foundation.
That's foundational. But that's the easy part. What I've seen in our business is that we've been able to come alongside nonprofits and individuals to help facilitate the growth of the kingdom and the extension of the gospel through our time, our talents, our access to resources. And a lot of this relates to our overseas business. And we've seen a need grow in the Southeast Asia community for our ability to access people, talented, resourceful people in Southeast Asia that we work with, we can also leverage those connections to help missionaries, to help churches and other organizations push their kingdom-related agendas through our growing network. So I have a couple good examples, and I want to try and illustrate that today because it is complex and it is a little different for everybody, but generally speaking, money is the easy part. The more powerful, complicated part is partnering with other organizations.
Sure. Well, let's talk about that. So give me an example of just how you saw this play out in goodness with Southeast Asia, with what I know there's some things that you can't share, but like, what can you tell us or give us a really solid story, example of something that you were able to leverage, something other than money, whether it be influence, resources, et cetera, to really kind of help advance kingdom purposes that other people are kind of focused in on?
We'll start simple. What's a simple example that I can talk about? Right here in Kansas City, there's a fantastic little mission organization called Adelante. And Adelante runs a thrift store. And their main mission community is the immigrant community in Kansas City. And the simplest example was we're a large business that has a large warehouse. And just through some connections at church, I learned that Adelante Thrift needed some place to store overflow thrift store goods. These used to be like home good items. And I said, well, we have a warehouse. We have an extra pallet rack row. So we worked with Adelante to just give them our warehouse space and allow them some time to like grow and flex and scale their organization. So that was like one easy, quick example. The more complex ones are our relationships in Southeast Asia. So roughly half of our supply chain is located in Southeast Asia. So half of our products come from overseas. And I've been blessed to travel over there a lot. To kind of one of my duties in O-Ring was to manage a lot of the overseas relationships and supply chains. And so back in the heyday before COVID, I was going to Southeast Asia twice a year on trips that were 2 to 3 weeks long to build relationships with overseas suppliers, check in on projects, and push basically general business forward.
Yeah.
Well, through the years, we've established some great friends over there. Beyond business connections, these are people that I stay in their home, commune with their children and their family, get to know their spouses. They cook us meals. I eat them. I usually get sick, but whatever. We're very much, growing in our personal friendship level beyond just business. Yeah. Well, then, in the last decade, several countries, including, well, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows that all these countries are getting more and more closed off to the gospel and to overtly Christian ministry organizations are having a more difficult time working there, staying there, having missionaries live there. And I started to watch a lot of the missionaries we financially supported pull out of Southeast Asia. And it was really concerning to me, like, hey, what's happening? And they explained, and I already kind of knew that administrations and governments were working kind of counter to the gospel initiative towards a more nationalistic approach. So we've come up with a couple creative ways to provide missionaries. So these are folks with a gospel mindset, but to have real tactical worldly skills like engineers. Yes. So these would be like degreed mechanical engineers, really talented, smart people that have a heart and love for God. So they have a college background in academic world that provides them tactical skills, but then their work for a mission organization. And if we frame it as, hey, we're going to do legitimate business overseas in Southeast Asia and form legitimate organizations that provide a huge benefit for the local economies and governments there in Southeast Asia, then we can keep people over there. People with a gospel-minded mindset that are going to create, small groups, Bible studies, home churches. They're very organic. It's almost like their side hustle because their day job is a legitimate job. And it has to be, to get visas and access into the country. I think that's a creative way forward. And it's messy, it's complicated. It takes a long time. to establish that. But once it's established, it's the only way in some countries that the gospel message from an outsider is going to get into the country.
Yeah. So. It's like establishing kingdom culture, through the marketplace. So it's like it's tied to a legitimate product, service, or what are offering there, but yet it's established and rooted in kingdom culture. And so the goodness that comes out of that and just there every day is really good. Yeah, I really love that. One of the things that I talk about quite a bit is this kind of idea of how it's so important that we are kind of rooting ourselves, going on this thing around kingdom culture, is kind of rooting ourselves and growing in the things of the kingdom within ourselves. And then there's an outflow of that from the people around us, like in our organizations and our companies. And then you also have that step to those who are out, the influence that you have outside of your company, whether it's vendors, partners, nonprofit organizations, whoever's lives you're kind of touching outside of, the walls of that organization. I'm curious to know about what it looks like in your organization. Like, what does it look like for you guys to create, maintain, grow kind of kingdom culture? What does that mean to you guys in your companies that you guys are focusing on now? And what does that look like? I don't know how many employees you have there in Kansas City, or like, what is that? Yeah. How does that play out for you guys?
Well, let's see. We have roughly 17 employees, if you count me and Jay, who are doing different things. Yeah. Put it all together, we're still probably just right about 20 people. So it's a very small human capital. But the company culture around a kingdom culture just starts around Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner table with my 4 brother-in-laws, since we all work for the company.
Yes. It's half the company is family, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, a solid fifth of it is. Yeah.
Okay.
All family. And so because a solid fifth of it is family, and these guys are all healthy Christians, we've also recruited or hired a lot of individuals that we know. It's very hard to find good people. So we tend to hire people from our network, our personal networks, from church, from school, from college. So these are folks that we know. There's been a couple instances where they were my really good friends, and that's a high risk, high reward.
Yes.
Be really
that's bad, so true.
Really good. But other times it's been kind of third tier connections. So friends of friends that we know are great people, and we've hired them. So it's a very organic way to get a kingdom driven culture, is just surround yourself with folks that innately, personally, in their, have the kingdom culture. So it's not anything that we have to push with any sort of campaigns. We just have.
It's just who you guys are based off of the nature of the people that are a part of the organization in general.
Yeah. And I hear stories all the time, like of great kingdom initiatives that people are taking in their personal lives and asking for help or resources from the company. And it's always a quick yes.
Yeah.
What the Lord's laid on their hearts. We want to help them, do that in their church or in their school, and try and facilitate flexibility with people to, put their kids into private schooling institutions, get out of some of these caustic public school scenarios right now. So those are probably just easy, organic ways that we do.
Yeah, super good. Now, I'm curious about you as a leader and what this looks like for you, because, we're always talking about how, it's one thing to say that we're working for the glory of God. It's another thing to say that we are working with God, that, that there's insight that he has, there's strategy that he has, like we can walk with him and grow with him in business. And that is absolutely for his glory. So I'm curious to know about your own walk and leading, and how God kind of leads you in the midst of your leadership, or maybe one of the a fun story where you've been led one direction that you might have expected another direction, or something like that. But what's this like for you as a leader?
Yeah, boy, my story's not all peachy keen. So
they usually aren't. It's all good. We're here for it.
I was really thriving at O-Ring Sales, and I think the employees, I enjoyed being a leader there. I was the sales manager, and I did a lot of overseas sourcing work, and so a lot of supply chain stuff. And then it pivoted when we created Shelfaware and decided to launch it as an independent company. I initially was like, oh yeah, I would love to do that. And then I took that leap and I jumped over to the Shelfaware side, which is a software startup. It's pretty light on human capital.
Right.
I have some software contractors, quite a few of those that I work with, but no real employees. I had to pull myself out of where I was most comfortable being a leader and leading with all those people that I loved. I mean, heck, like half of them are my friends and family.
Yes.
Or more than half of them. And so that was it was difficult for me, and I didn't really want to abandon that. And I still sometimes, wish I was over there on the other side. We're physically separate. So I have my own little office, and it's lonely and it's quiet, but that's provided some time for me to reflect and work more closely on these overseas initiatives where we're working with our resources in country. It's given me some more time to think about that and have to not worry about the daily leadership management of the human capital, all the folks that are on the other side of the complex. And so what that spawned in me was a desire to dig deeper into what the complicated, messy stuff is and how I could help nonprofits become better organizations. So that introspective process also made me more critical of some nonprofits.
Okay.
And it's made my whole experience has made me look at a nonprofit that I financially support and kind of give them a quick rundown to make sure that they are an efficient organization and that my hard-earned money and tithes are being taken care of, like in the parable of the talents in Matthew 25.
Yeah.
So there's it's a little darker side of me. I'm somewhat hypercritical when it comes to organizations that I work with because of that. Not just leadership background, but I've also started to teach in an academic setting other entrepreneurs how to run just efficient organizations. And so it's become, I sometimes have to check myself before I wreck myself when
or wreck somebody else.
Yeah, or wreck somebody else, because I can be harsh, brutal at times with my church, my own personal church and their leadership. Yeah. I can be very critical of decisions they're making to leverage the resources God's given them. Yeah. And the fruits of that, the good things, are I've repositioned some of my financial giving to be directed towards the institutions that I see have a unique market offering in the kingdom space. And so these are organizations that are doing, and I'll give two shout outs, two my favorite ones right now. Jesus Film Project, I think is a great, solid organization. It's well run. And they have just a really clear directive, and that is show through audio visual, the story of Jesus in every different language. It's translated all over the world. So I love the Jesus Film Project because it's that real tangible product that they're bringing to the kingdom marketplace. Yes. And then another one is a brand new, fairly new startup in the missions organizational space called Filter of Hope. And they make a high-tech water filter. It's actually made and sourced in Southeast Asia. And this little water filter can clean non-potable water, 500 gallons of water in a short amount of time, like in a week period. So you can go through 500 gallons of water a day. I think up to, let's see, I don't know, there'll be thousands of gallons of water a week, and the filter is good for 10 years. And they took this super high-tech small water filter and they're using it in a clean water initiative throughout the world, starting and I love how they started in Central and South America because it's cheap to get there. So you can get people there quickly and efficiently, and they're going to scale out to the other parts of the world. So I am working with both of those organizations, obviously financially supporting them with my time and talent. I've been on a couple little trips with them, trying to get better involved and more knowledgeable about what they do and how they do it, and continue to be impressed with how efficient they are organizationally. So they're not like top heavy with 50 people in the front office that don't need to be there. They're spending wise time and money efforts marketing and scaling it efficiently, and they're not really seeking to just go big to go big for the glory of it. They're looking at a real numbers based way to scale the organization. So I'm helping both of them too behind the scenes with supply chain issues. So how do they get to other parts of the world, and how do they establish networks to distribute those filters or distribute those audiovisual materials in other parts of the world, and do that in an efficient way with the right in country connections. So that's a little bit of kind of, I guess, an in-depth look at my personal.
I'm about to go in a little bit more, Andrew. I'm about to go in. You ready for me?
Yeah, go for it.
So you mentioned on the front end of that how it was, you're in this process of you stepped out of the comfortable space where you're working with the people that you really enjoy working with and doing something. And then you're walking into a new thing, which can be kind of lonely because you don't have that same dynamic there. But at the same time, it's giving you some quiet space to really just kind of think about, what you all are doing and, all of those things. But I'm also curious to know, in these quiet spaces, what's God working out in you right now? How is he helping you to grow, or what's the uncomfortable thing that you're having to work through now in the midst of this quieter space for you in the Shelfaware business as you're kind of walking this thing out?
Man, with me personally, it's, he's definitely working out how I wake up every day with a kingdom perspective, and how that translates to how I describe the world to my children. How I instill upon them the entrepreneurial kingdom spirit of taking new ground and taking risks and rolling the dice and not always playing it safe. That's probably where I'm trying to press into the most is how you can get lost in the daily grind of a startup and trying to get a small business off the ground and lose sight of initiatives in your neighborhood with your neighbors, and lose sight of your children and their development, and lose sight of your wife and your relationship with her, and how you foster that when you're trying to, basically burn the candle at both ends. So that's probably where he's been working on me the most, is setting aside time every day to focus on the little things that I need to continue to execute on while still running a very small business by myself. The
little things that are big things.
Little things that are huge things. You got company culture, then you got your family, and if that falls apart. Right.
How old are your kids?
They're really little still. So, and my story on the personal side is unique too. I'm married. Well, it's not that unique because you shared pre-show that you married your high school.
I sure did.
Yeah. Did you get married or not married? You met your husband and started dating him at 16?
At age 16, yes.
At age 16. So my wife and I started dating at age 17. So we're 1 year behind you. Then we got married at 21. So I've been married almost 15 years. My children are 10. My daughter's 10. My son's 8. And my other son's about to turn 5. And so I am trying to concern myself, obviously, with getting the startup going, but how does my business life include my children?
Right.
One unique way that's been laid on my heart, my God, just in the last couple of years is as soon as COVID's over, as soon as I can get back to Asia, and start to work on those Southeast Asian connections and relationships again, I want to do it, regardless of the risks. And so I'm thinking of trying to get back to Southeast Asia first quarter of next year, which to a lot of people are like, well, that's insane. Well, I think, I would be rewarded. I will be rewarded for being the first one back over there. Reestablish those connections. And then top of my list is taking my children with me.
I love that.
One at a time on these trips to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And the reasons are almost too numerous to list out that I want to do it. And I believe the Lord wants me to commit a little bit of extra time in my overseas agenda to accommodating my children. So that freaks my wife out. She's like, in a lot of ways, she's like, heck no, you're not taking my baby to Southeast Asia, because she knows the trips are hectic. There's always risks when you travel like that. And often I'm by myself for long periods of time. And I don't necessarily communicate real well with my wife about where I'm at in the world sometimes either. Because it's difficult. So I just kind of, put my head down and get my stuff done over there. They're busy. They're hard trips. It's a lot of factories. They're dirty. Lots of time, just basically hurry up and wait and transportation settings. So she's like, how's that going to be impactful for our children? But I just think the more I think about it and dwell on it and pray about it, there's so many reasons to take that risk with my kids. And I think it'll pay dividends in their lives.
So eventually. Good. Now, what about over here with the work, whether it's with what you're doing with Shelfaware or with the industrial rubbers, that company? I don't know what the name of that company is, but you know what I'm talking about.
With
that sales. Company, what's it called?
O-ring sales.
Okay. And so, yes, with the O-ring sales. And so I'm curious, with your 10-year-old now, are there ways that you've been able to, or you've really been impressed on your heart to establish, introduction to entrepreneur? Do you guys kind of immerse him in it, or is it that you're kind of teaching him as you're going along? Because he's at that age now that he has a bit of understanding. What does that look like? Because your dad believed in child labor.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how that's carrying over.
Yeah,
for you and your family.
They're all my kids are starting to ask more questions about what I do, because my job is abnormal. I travel a lot stateside for work, and a lot of those are visiting factories here that we're installing the Shelfaware system at, partnering. We equip and partner suppliers, so I got to go to their facilities a lot. So I'm gone quite a bit. I just started traveling a lot more. Just in the last couple months. And I'm glad I wasn't on the road or in the air this last week, because Southwest Airlines just started.
That was a whole mess.
Yeah, shoot, I would have been living in an airport for we could have been doing this from an airport.
Right.
I lucked out there. I got back from Chicago last week, and then it all hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, woo, thanking the Lord that I was back in Kansas City. But they started to ask a lot more questions, and I think it's the little things. It's the small conversations around family meals, which are important.
Yes.
That try and highlight not only what I'm doing today, but how their uncles play a part in this, and what what their grandpa did to get this all started. Yes. And then I want to instill upon them in the entrepreneurial spirit, to allow them to dream about what it could be for them, and not necessarily do what I do, but work with what I've built to do something different.
Yeah.
I don't know that when I was in high school, I thought I was just going to do what my dad did. I was going to do the same things he did in the exact same way. And it wasn't until the Lord brought all my brother-in-laws in that we really sat back and said, we can take what Doug did, what the founder did, and continue to do the same old things, or we can take a risk, pray about it, and do a couple new things in a new direction and see how it gets rewarded.
Yeah.
And maybe oftentimes in the beginning, we learned a lot from early mistakes. Yes. But that's what I want to instill upon my kids is you don't have to come work for your dad. But if you do, I want you to bring your own creativity to it, not necessarily think like you're just going to do what I do and be successful. Because the world's just changing so fast. That's what we talk about around the table.
No, that's
why does Daddy do what he does? Why is he traveling so much? These are all little risks that I'm taking, and these are me traveling and being away from the family. It's an investment, in our future and in your future, and that's why I have to do it. And they're always asking me, stay home. I'm sorry, I can't.
the tension in that for the season. Right. I have one other question for you, since, especially with this whole family dynamic. So, there's major decisions that need to be made in business, and, those decisions aren't always made by just one individual. They're often made with, others. And all of you are, people who believe in the power of prayer, the necessity of prayer, having God's heart towards things that you're doing. So I'm curious to how you guys function. Will you ever have situations where it's we have an important decision to make, and then everyone's like, okay, well, I'm going to pray about it. And then you guys come together, and then it's
agrees.
You guys are right. And then you guys don't agree.
Yeah.
And how, because I have to imagine that that's a very real scenario. And then how do you guys kind of work through that type of stuff and still feel like you're being faithful and focused in on the thing that God has for you guys to do collectively?
Right. Boy, the easiest way to explain this is, number one, I've said it before, and this is a repeat theme, but the Lord really, really blessed us with a unique situation where, because they're my brother-in-laws, they come from unique backgrounds with different perspectives. They're all really, really talented in their own rights, but our talents, we're all, you talk about the fivefold ministry, I think. And so, I'm definitely scoring a lot different on the fivefold ministry chart than my brother-in-law. So I'm that kind of apostle type. I score really high in apostle. So I'm out front. I don't even care if people fall down. I'm just like, sorry, bro, we're moving on.
I'm no pastor.
I hope the pastors pick you up and carry you along, because I'm not going to. That's me. And then my other brother-in-laws score uniquely very, very different. We're extremely different. What that's allowed us to do is work together well, because we don't overlap often.
Yeah.
So we bring these
honor that within each other.
Yes. So and this is my brother-in-law, Jay, did a great job of instilling this concept in with all of us, including my dad, of recognizing not necessarily what we're all really good at, because I think everybody knows those innately, and you wear that on your sleeve, and especially in business, you're like, look, this is what I'm good at. But very rarely do we recognize out loud what everybody's bad at. And Jay did a good job of highlighting to all of us through a series of personality tests and fivefold ministry type tests, where we're going to compartmentalize our strengths and weaknesses, but then focus as a group, as a management team, on what we're really terrible at, and then owning those and saying, look, I'm really bad at this. For me personally, I'm a dreamer. I'm a visionary. I'm the out front guy. So I'm very bad about caring for the least. I'm very bad about executing in the details. I just continue to just plow ahead and kind of forget everything else. So that's where they're good at it.
Right.
And we've learned to stay in our lanes. That's good. Then lastly, the reason I think we were so quick to jump in with both feet on the concept of creating new businesses is it provides all of us an opportunity to lead our own thing, to do our own thing.
That's interesting.
They're complementary, and that's the key. You can start something. So traditionally speaking, startups are like, go out, find somebody with tons of money, a capital investment or VC, and get them to help you start it. In our world, what we found was if we created businesses that were tangential to what our core competencies and our core business was, that we could grow and spawn new businesses and not have to go out and really roll the dice with VC money. They organically work together to grow everything collectively at the same time, spawning new things. And so
that's good. And gives you each a level of autonomy. And creativity and all of those things. So you get to have those itches scratched. Kind of flex our muscles in our own way, take our own risks and little challenges. Okay. I like that.
And learn from it and fail. And believe me, if I make a bad choice at Shelfaware, they'll let me know, like, hey, that was a terrible move. Yep, that was pretty bad. But that's probably the secret to our success. Starts with a blessing, and then we just rolled with it, leveraged the blessing, the fact that God had brought us unique individuals, and leverage that to create an environment where we could continue to one up and reinvest and thrive.
That's super good. And that is unique. I like that. I love that. Andrew, this has been a fun chat with you, and I appreciate you sharing. For those who are like, this is really interesting, there's something about something that you said that caught their attention and they wanted to connect more with you or with the business, or like what's the best direction for those listening who want to connect?
Yeah, best way is to find me on LinkedIn. If you're a business professional, I'm sure you have a profile on there. I'm pretty active on that social media business platform. So if you go to LinkedIn, my name's super common. So
I was going to say, when they put in Andrew Johnson, they're going to find 5 million people. So what else do they put into search?
All right. So my first name on LinkedIn is actually Andrew Johnson. My last name is Supply Chain Innovator. So if you type that all in, you will find only one result, and it will be me.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah. Last name, Supply Chain Innovator.
You solved that problem right
LinkedIn
there,
hack
Andrew.
right there. That's a LinkedIn advice. So LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me. If you want to look at the company websites just for fun, you can go to oringsales.com. That's ORINGSALES.com. That's the family business. There's an About Us page where you can read like some profiles and see pictures of my brothers and my dad. And then Shelfaware's website is Shelfaware, all one word, just like this crazy cool sign. And then add VMI. That's for Vendor Managed Inventory, VMI at the end of it. So shelfaware.vmi.com, and you can learn about what we're doing in that space. Otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn. Feel free to message me directly if you have questions, or I do teach a lot in an academic setting. So I speak at conferences and trade shows, and I do lots of podcasting. So they'll find more content where I'm talking about the similar principles, just in a strictly business sense of incremental innovation and how to take a company, reinvent it, and use technology to do that. So that's usually my shtick when you find me in the marketplace.
I love it. Well, thanks, Andrew, for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for providing this platform. I think it's a really unique way to spread the gospel message.
Such a great chat with Andrew Johnson. And now I have with me Mr. Bynes, our CEO of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, and my dear husband. What's going on, Phil?
All is well, my love.
Awesome. So let's talk takeaways from my chat with Andrew.
Okay, so from your chat with Andrew, the first takeaway I have here is giving money into the kingdom or investing financially is only foundational when it comes to doing things for the kingdom. The deeper thing and the deeper works happen as you invest other resources into the community.
So I loved that because we often talk about being a distribution center in the kingdom of God and how we have to think of all of our resources, not just financial, but any resource that we have, and making those available for us to be able to receive those and to give those freely as God's leading us. And so I really love that example that he gave. Good stuff.
Yeah, that was good stuff. The second one I have here is to be sure to set aside time to focus on the little things that are important to you. If you don't, they will get lost in the busyness of everyday life. And I thought that was very good, because you often hear when it comes to entrepreneurs or business people, especially if they're operating at a high level, how, they get to the end of their life or they get further down the road and they have regrets because they haven't invested in the principal thing, which is their family or their loved ones. And so if you set aside, become intentional about setting aside time for those little things, then it won't get lost in the everyday shuffle.
Yeah, that's good. The little things that are actually big things.
Yes, they're the most important.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And so the third thing I have here is it's important when it comes to your children. It's important to teach your children to dream for themselves so that they don't grow up and try to fill your shoes. Especially if you're leaving behind a legacy. A lot of times that's our hope, to leave behind a legacy for our children. But the hard part about that is if you don't do a good job of teaching them how to dream for themselves, you'll have them trying to do things that you did and they're not suited to do what you did.
Yeah. I feel like this was a conversation that we had also really recently with another guest, with Warwick Fairfax, right? It's just, there's been multiple examples on the podcast where...
Well, yeah, that was his story. He tried to fill his grandfather's shoes and it didn't turn out good, right? But this was a different angle. Like, teach your children how to dream so that they don't fall into the trap of trying to fill your shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah. And the fourth point I have here is, as it pertains to you as a leader, recognize what you are bad at. It'll help keep you humble. The story here is Andrew was talking about one of his brother-in-laws that had them do assessments and stuff like that. And instead of focusing on the things that they were good at, because they all knew what they were good at and they all realized that it was their jam. One of the things they did was intentionally focus on the things that they were not good at, to help them remember not to step in places where they shouldn't when it comes to leadership.
Yeah.
I think that's good for helping you trust your team and build your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Super good. I love it. So that's good stuff. So before we close, first of all, kind of hard to believe that we are already nearing the end of 2021, because in many ways, I feel like we just entered 2021. So this year has gone by very quickly. I probably have said that every year for the past several years. But anyway, so before we close, want to share, if you have not heard the news, that we launched our new course called the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Master Class. And we really want to encourage you to check it out. It is a video course. It is self-paced, but it's going to walk you through. Phil says that this is more than basic training. Our Firestarter School, which this course actually replaced, that we used to call basic training. What do you call this one?
I haven't given it.
You haven't given this
yet.
one a name?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but it's super good because there's so much that we have learned, so much that we have been imparting into others, that we were able to add to just make this a next level of what it's like to walk things out as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur. And not just as a Christian who happens to be a business owner. And so the masterclass takes you through some key foundational things that help you walk this out. So if you have been enjoying this podcast and you've been enjoying the stories and enjoying what you're hearing about what it looks like to walk this thing out as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur, we strongly encourage you to check out the Kingdom-Driven Entrepreneur Masterclass. You can get the details and enroll at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/masterclass.
Yeah. And there's one thing about the masterclass I really want you guys to get is because one of the things that's added to it is a framework to help you see where you are in your development as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur. You know, a lot of times I think we don't recognize where we are, and thus we think that we're further along than we should be. But when you go through this curriculum, this course, this program, what should I call it?
You can call it a course. That's fine.
Okay. All right. So when you go through this course, one of the things that you're going to find very beneficial is this framework that will help you put all the things in perspective, because that's what I really believe in. When you get perspective, you grow.
Yeah, super good. All right. So again, you can go to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/masterclass. Let's see. Anything else, Mr. Vines? Are you good?
No, that's it.
All right. Very good. Well, we will talk to you more next week on the next episode of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.